Hello, I'd like to welcome everyone to our Lean webinar today. The title of our webinar is Lean, is it a flavor of the month or major contributor to success? I'm Mike Boucher, VP of Client Services for Lean Advisors, and I'd like to welcome everyone and introduce Larry Cote, the President and CEO of Lean Advisors. Larry will be delivering the webinar today, and Larry has been involved in leading continuous improvement efforts for over 20 years. And in the last 12, 13 years, Larry has been the CEO and President of Lean Advisors, and he has been working with many industries, many different types of business sectors, from government, healthcare, traditional manufacturing, and service industries. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Larry and let him get started. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Welcome to everybody online. Today we're going to talk about Lean, but what we're going to look at is success and failure of Lean. It's a concept that's been used for probably 15 years. I'm not saying every company has been at it for 15 years, but the concept has been out there for the past 15 years since it was coined by an MIT student in 1995, I believe, somewhere around there. And then, of course, made famous by Jim Womack and Daniel Jones. So what we want to look at, is it just a flavor of the month, or has it been a major contributor to success of organizations and industries around the world? With 15 years and hundreds of thousands of companies, I don't know how many, but a variety of industries, all have tried to adapt and apply it with varying degrees of success. So what I'm hoping we can do in the next 30 minutes or so is to look at how some of the pitfalls and how organizations have been successful and why they've been successful. So let's get started, and let me tell you a little bit about Lean Advisors, Inc. We've been around for more than 13 years, and we've been successfully adapting and applying Lean to a wide variety of industries and organizations. And as you'll see in the next slide, healthcare, education, service, manufacturing, government, design and architect, you name it, we've probably been involved in applying and adapting Lean concepts in all of those types of organizations. All our consultants are senior consultants. Not only are they experts in Lean theory, they also have a lot of experience in actually taking Lean and adapting and applying it in their own organizations prior to joining Lean Advisors, Inc. So I consider them real experts who can go in and empathize and work with you, understand the challenges you're having because they've been through it themselves, and that's what's key to the group that we have here at Lean Advisors, Inc. Personally, I've been in industry now since the 80s. I'm not aging myself too well there, but since the 80s, using Deming, JIT, quality circles, continuous improvement, you name it, all the fads, I'll call them, but also the concepts that led to building up what is now called Lean. So I've worked with all of those concepts and stuck with Lean, of course, for the last decade or more. And plus I had the opportunity to work directly with Jim Womack at the Lean Enterprise Institute in Boston as he was starting up the institute. So was able to work on a lot of the Lean theory, and of course able to garner a lot of knowledge on the topic from a lot of very knowledgeable people that I would consider experts in the field of Lean. Some of the organizations, and this is a partial list that we threw together for this presentation just to give you an idea of the experience that we've had at Lean Advisors, and it is varied. As you can see, we've worked with colleges, we've worked with food processing, municipal governments, ministries, aerospace companies, machine manufacturers, pharma companies, as well as places like the House of Commons here in Canada. So it's been an exciting journey, and if you look at the next one, you can see that we separated out the healthcare only because Lean Advisors was probably one of the first back 9-10 years ago now to take Lean and adapt and apply it to healthcare. We knew that this was a field we wanted to have an impact on, and so we decided early on, earlier than most people in North America. I can't speak for the rest of the world, but I think we were one of the first to successfully adapt and apply Lean into healthcare. So let's start with an agreement. And I'm going to use Albert Einstein's quote. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. I don't think there's any argument on that. The challenge becomes that, okay, if we can't use the same thinking that we used to create the situation we have today or the current state, then what are our options? And over the years, one of the options has been, of course, Lean. Now, Lean gets a lot of hype for the dramatic impact it has. It supposedly reduces lead time, cost, labor, space that's required, reduces inventories, decreases the defects and errors or the chances of making errors. And of course, on the upside, it increases client responsiveness, increases your capacity, employee satisfaction goes up, allows you to be much more flexible because, as we all know, whether you're in the service industries or in manufacturing, clients expect more every day, and plus they change what they're after, and you need to be able to adapt quickly to their changing demands. And also, the bottom line, it improves the safety. So that's not just hype, that is exactly what everyone should expect as they go through a Lean transformation. So if you don't see that, why do you not see it? To maximize success in basic terms, there's a few elements that we have been able to ascertain over the years. First, you need to have passion and courage. Going up against an entire organization and trying to change an organization is not an easy challenge, and it requires somebody that has the passion and courage to tackle this and know that they're going to meet a lot of resistance and people are not going to just buy in because they say it. So that is the first element that is required within an organization. And that passion and courage needs to be at a management leadership level. The next thing that is required is when you're going to change, you need to get the right knowledge. And I emphasize right because there is a lot of different ways of interpreting what Lean is all about and how you're going to adapt and apply it. So it's key to get the right knowledge, because when you go about changing an organization, transforming an organization, you get one shot at it. And so make sure that it's right, because if you don't, and then it doesn't allow you to reach what you expect to reach and get you the gains that you expected, it's going to be tough to turn around and start something new again. And once you have the right knowledge, then what you need is a proper plan. That plan is tactical as well as strategic. You need to have the strategy, which outlines the vision, where you're going, what you're going to measure your improvements on and your change on, what it's going to take, and the impact that you expect from that. And that needs to be communicated. Tactically, you're going to use tools which we'll talk about later, like value stream mapping and so on, to nail down exactly how you're going to create the change within processes. And of course, a plan is useless and considered waste unless you execute the plan. All three of the ones, A, B, and C, passion, courage, right knowledge, and proper plan, can be total waste if you don't execute the plan and actually create the change. And the last thing that you need to understand as you go about a transformation is you need to set up a basis for change. And it needs to be standardized. Because if you just say you want change and you turn around and allow everyone to go about it in their own way, with their own ideas, without any direction and without any consistency, you're going to create a lot of different problems and you will be out of control. In fact, that's what we used to do in the 80s and early 90s, is we'd just start changing. We didn't have a process for change. We actually just created change, and we were excited that when we had projects and improvements and a list of them, and we could report on them every week. So keep this in mind as we go through this talk today. Standardizing your change process actually changes your culture as well as technically how you go about change. So we're going to go through some of the success factors. Of course, this list is not complete, but these are imperative. And there are more, but we have 30 minutes, and I picked these as the topics for today to talk about as far as success factors or to increase your chances of success when using Lean to transform your organization. First one is measurement. Yes, it's true, if you don't measure it, it won't improve. But the problem with that statement, it's too short and doesn't recognize that you need to put the proper measurement in place, a measurement that will actually drive the behaviors that you want and expect from your staff. It needs to support the change that you're putting in, and it should lead back to your strategic plan and vision that you have developed. You have to be very careful, because when you measure something, yes, it will change, but if that measurement is a node in the system or a node in the process, and you improve that node, you have to understand it is linked upstream and downstream. So when you double, let's say, if it's a system that goes from A to B to C to D, let's say we double what B is doing, and now we've just created a measurement that says B is producing twice as much as it used to produce before the change. What you have to think about it now is that was great, except you just created some problems in A and C. C probably can't handle the volume coming at them, and A probably is going, I can't provide them with the work that they need, so they're idle a lot of the time. And that whole measurement system drives everyone to be drives everyone to perform some quirky changes to the way they work, and plus it sets up where you're now working in silos, because now B looks like the hero and A, C, and D look like they need to catch up, and they really are the underdogs in the system. So measurement should be geared towards your strategy, and also should be looking at client impact. And we'll talk a little bit about that, but it should be quality, cost, speed, flexibility, and inequality is the safety element. So measurement is key. Just be very careful with that because, you know, we see it in healthcare where we're measuring wait times in emergency departments. And yes, people are improving the wait time in emergency departments, but are they really improving the quality? Are they lowering the cost? What you will find in a lot of cases, and we've seen this, where the emergency room or department is optimized at the expense of the other departments that are actually linked to it. So, you know, you see things like gurneys sitting in the wards because the measurement was how quickly you got them out of the ER. You see it in airlines where they are pushing, they measure the time that they leave, their on-time departure. And what you see is airlines that'll actually push away from the jetway because that's when the clock stops ticking and it says that we have left on time, only to sit there on the tarmac with a loaded plane with all the people, and they can't go anywhere waiting for a departure. But at least the airline can report we have left on time. So you got to be careful with measurement, and a lot of people are using the wrong measurement to drive change. So the next point that we need to look at is, and I've alluded to it in the measurement, system thinking, not projects. We see this continually in most organizations that we go into. They are set up, of course, in departments, in silos, and they are looking at the process through a process map, and I don't have time to go into the difference between a process map and a value stream map, which I'm going to talk about, but the process map basically outlines, it goes from this department to the next department, and it shows you the flow, but in basic silos. And the problem you get into when you look at a process map or any style of map that does that type of thing where it moves from node to node, you will end up looking for bottlenecks. And so it goes back to that A, B, C, D example I was giving. And so you're saying that B is the bottleneck. So then you're going to turn around and attack that bottleneck, improve it at the expense of upstream and downstream. Now, the exciting part about this for consultants, and I can talk about this because we are consultants, is it's a great way to impress leadership because you can attack a bottleneck and go in and show the CEO of the organization, look what we've done. We've doubled what we could do in there before. And everyone gets excited, and you know, you do celebration on the success. And then the next words out of a consultant's mouth is, oh, and by the way, we have a couple other bottlenecks we could do the same thing to. And yes, exactly, you can, because you've created those. So the consultant is the fireman, puts out the fire, does the improvement, but also the arsonist, because it just created a couple more bottlenecks, created more problems that they could be used to fix them. So it's ideal. As a consultant, you could spend the rest of your career moving bottlenecks around an organization. System thinking is the only way that you will see success with Lean. When a request comes in, whether that's for a service or a product, to the point that it actually is delivered, that is the system. And we need to look at all the activities, not the departments, but all the activities in that system, and decide what's value, what's non-value, what can we eliminate, what can we change, because the ultimate is to flow the value activities to the client or the customer. That is what we need to look at. That is the way we'll maximize the results. So that's the key when we are looking at it. And here's a visual that you can use to show you system thinking versus project point improvement. If you're trying to go horizontally across the page, and these are rowers, ugly boats, but look at them as rowers. And if you improve that third rower in the bottom boat, you'll see they're now moving very quickly, but we're not headed in the right direction. And culturally, that sets everyone up to lose as well, because now we've got internal competition, which is not the competition we should be looking at. It should be external. And the culture now, there's a lot of infighting and people feeling like some people are better than others. And therefore, this creates more problems than you had previous to trying to implement improvements. So system versus point, not a surprise. Most companies, organizations are in silos by function and department, which naturally sets up that, you know, you throw it over the wall type attitude. We did our part, and so that creates finger pointing. When you use a value stream mapping tool, you don't look at silos in the organization. You're really, as I mentioned before, looking at activities. And that's the exciting part, and that is an extremely important tool to be utilized properly. We've seen it hundreds of times where people are using it, but it's being used improperly. It's a complex tool, but when used properly, it is extremely effective in analyzing current state, developing a future state, and more importantly, creating a detailed implementation plan for a transformation, both culturally and technically. So that's a very important point, and be very careful as you move towards any implementation using Lean. The next point, of course, is Lean is seen as a tool in most people's eyes. I don't know how many times I have walked into organizations and they see it as a tool, as a project. It is not. It is a cultural transformation. It's a different way of thinking about how you run your organization, how you make decisions, because Lean is focused on the client, the customer. It looks at what's value to the client. It doesn't look at departments as we've talked about. It is all about creating value as you are supplying what your client has requested. It is interesting. We go into a lot of different companies, and I was in one company where they were actually applying 5S, and they called that Lean. They have been applying 5S for almost 2 years. They had a very good looking plant, certainly visual and so on, but they had not taken care of the flow. The culture had not changed. They were still very much in their departmental headsets, and they had no idea on how to actually create change in the organization, from leadership right on down to the people on the floor. So if you walk away with anything today, this is one key element. Lean is not a tool. It has a tool set, and the key is to understand exactly what tools to use, when to use them, what the impact is going to be. Could be 5S, could be mistake proofing, could be Six Sigma. All of these are great tools, mistake proofing, cells, great tools, but there is a proper sequence of when to use them. And going back to the value stream mapping tool being the most important at the beginning, the value stream mapping, if done properly, will detail a future state implementation plan and will identify what tools to use, when to use them, who should be involved in the impact. That's the key for moving forward and being successful. This is an interesting one. We always get into facilities or places and they don't have enough time. Of course, everybody's working hard, and the year has 12 months. But when we look at the year through their eyes, this is what we normally see, and this is what they call continuous improvement. The red shows when most organizations are not available to do continuous improvement or to make changes or transform or get teams together. You know, you start the year off, everybody's just coming back from Christmas, the holidays, and so it takes them a couple weeks to get into it. So part of January, they're prepared to do things. February is a pretty good month. No interruptions there. Valentine's Day, but that doesn't interrupt. So now you're into March, and now you've got March break. And so not too much can happen then. And you have, of course, Easter going into April, so that chops it up a little bit, but you get a good portion of that month. Then May, you know, south of the border, they have their long weekend. Canada has their long weekend, so we don't want to do too much before that. And, you know, right after that, then we got to do catch up, so we can't really work on continuous improvement. And then in June, we have another holiday time coming up. So the first part of June's pretty good for doing continuous improvement, but the last part of June, everybody's starting to go on holidays. We don't want to start anything. We'll have to wait through July, August, September, because everybody's on holidays and we can't start right at the beginning of September. And so you get the idea, you know, then Thanksgiving and so on, and then December's totally out of, you know, everybody's head is off on, you know, prepping for the holidays. So this is what organizations call continuous improvement, and that has to change. Continuous improvement is improvement 12 months a year, every day. You know, that is the only way any organizations are going to change the culture, and also to let your staff know that this is important. We're not stopping, so let's figure out how to do it. So just thought I'd throw that up. You know, continuous improvement means continuous, not 5.5 months kind of sporadically spread throughout the year. Management capacity. This is not a new concept, but we recently have adapted the concept or the approach of lean, and thinking behind lean, to actually look at management capacity, because over the years we've found this is a major challenge in all organizations. Nobody has extra resources sitting on the bench waiting to go in. So how do you intend on making improvement when everyone is working 100%? So what we've come up with is going in and looking at not just management, but staff, groups, as well as individuals, and looking at what they're doing now, of course, identifying value and non-value, eliminating properly, again, it has to be done in the right way, eliminating some of the non-value, which, you know, some of it is easily identified, but also a lot of it is connected upstream and downstream again. So you have to come up with a solid plan, not just transfer someone's work over to someone else who's already working 100%. So it's much more complex, but it's a key element as you go through and try to implement lean. You need to open up management capacity. And, you know, with everyone working 100%, they're stressed out. And we found when we go in and actually use the thinking behind lean to free up management capacity, we actually reduce that stress, and we open up opportunity for management, leadership, staff to actually work on changing things, to work on the continuous improvement, work on the strategy of change that is driving the company. So rather than just trying to make it happen, sometimes organizations need to be much more structured in how they go at this. And you may find this out right at the beginning, or you may find this out as you move forward, but every organization at some point stumbles into this challenge. And so that's what we've been doing, and it's been extremely effective. And certainly the staff are excited because now they see the organization actually understanding how much stress and how much work they have and alleviating that, and then adding the new responsibilities. And when you go in and you look at that, one of the priorities is to standardize part of their workload. If I'm thinking of more of the management groups, you can't standardize their day totally, but there is a portion of their day that can be standardized. And where you can do that, you should. And it's exciting to see when you do standardize a portion of their work for every day, it really does allow them to be much more efficient and also allows them to reduce that stress because they're not jumping around and know exactly what they're doing for the next 2 hours. And as I said, not for the 8 hours they're there or the 10 hours they're there, but for a portion of their day, it's a real routine, which allows them a lot of opportunity to relax a little more, to think about things. And of course, the major reason from our standpoint that you're doing this, it's freeing people up to actually work on a lean transformation. The next two that I'm going to speak about, leadership and expertise, are near and dear to my heart. Leadership especially is key, and the reason I put leadership down 3 times is Masaaki Imai, the last living guru of lean, who worked with Ono, actually was responsible for bringing Ono over to North America and getting this country excited about the Toyota production system. He was asked one time at a conference, I had the opportunity of working with him for about 1.5 years, and he was asked one time when he was giving a speech, you know, what's the most important thing for success? And he said, number 1 is leadership, number 2 is leadership, and of course, number 3 is leadership. Without leadership, you will not be successful. They need to be excited about this. There's nothing wrong with starting in the middle of an organization. It doesn't have to be the CEO or the head honcho. It can be someone in the middle. But once it's proven that it works, the leadership, the top leadership, needs to buy on. And as Peter Drucker says, leader is the dynamic, life-giving element in every organization. And that is so true. We see it every day. So, leadership's mandate, has that changed over the years, the decades? Not at all. Their mandate is to deliver exactly what your customer, or client I've put here, wants, when they want it, at the price and the expected quality they are willing to pay for it, as well as be flexible because they are going to change their demands, sometimes on a daily basis. And then you continuously must take your business to the next level at a speed faster than you did the day before. The qualities of leadership we talked about before, they must have courage and passion. It is not easy to turn around and say, look, I know what we've been doing in the past and it's been somewhat successful, but now we're going to change. If you don't have the courage and passion to say, we need to be better and we are going to be better, there is no option, then you should not start down this road of transformation. That is a quality that all leadership should have. And the interesting thing is when you read a lot of the articles on leadership and read about some of the leadership that is out there in the news, most of them are focused on short term, not long term. And sometimes it's understandable because it's certainly more comfortable not to move forward with a new concept and try and change an entire organization because one, you're more comfortable with the way it was. You were probably promoted based on doing it that way. So not a lot of motivation to say we need to change. But it's not, if you're going to remain the same, as we know, you'll be left behind. So it's not an option. You have to change. And you have to have that courage and passion to do that. You have to understand, as we said, the client is expecting quality, speed, cost, and for you to be flexible. And that continually changes, and therefore leadership also has to recognize what they've done before will not work, as Einstein said. Must also understand that lean is not a tool, but a way of thinking. We've talked about that. Many of the leaders we run into, they've come from other industries and now they've been made CEO of an organization. They call us in and they're looking for the same tool that was used in the other organization. You know, we were Six Sigma, we want to use that tool. Well, they have to understand that a tool will not get them to the expected results. It is not possible. Many tools are needed. What they need to understand is what lean is, and that it is about changing the thinking in the organization and getting everyone in that organization moving in the same direction and thinking the same way and understanding that the focus is on the client. The next thing they must have is the right knowledge. And this is a tough one for them because they're in lean anyways. There's hundreds of thousands of people out there that have anointed themselves as lean experts. And rightly or wrong, they are selling what they know. And a lot of them, what they know is a tool or pieces of some of the tools, or they are using what they learned back in 1990s on, you know, how to set up projects. Those are the kind of things that the leadership has to somehow find his way through and understand that this has to be done right, and you need to find the right people to give you the right knowledge in order to actually do a transformation properly and meet your expected results. The next thing is a leader has to have direction and vision. This is key. People are going to follow a leader that knows where we are going and that is thinking long term, not just short term. If the leader does not know where the organization is going or what the mandate is and cannot communicate why it's necessary to change, then there is no way that the culture, the staff are going to change and support it. So it must be very clear what the direction is and what it looks like when we get there. He can leave the how to the staff, and as long as he knows where it's going and everyone else is understanding that, then everyone is on board and you will be successful using that. Must execute the plan. Stay with it. Constancy of purpose is critical. Don't bounce all over. Don't be flavor of the month leadership. And again, we talked about proper measures. Need to reward the right behaviors as well as have the proper measures. If you're just measuring on results, that will lead to minimal reaching of your expectations. What you're looking for is people to be focused on providing the best product in the fastest time at the least cost to your clients. And then, of course, support your management team, and we talked about capacity. You need to free them up to be able to build towards that vision that you have communicated. Plus, avoid exciting chaos. Don't get into point improvements. We've talked about that enough, but that is very important. And the way you measure, communicate, and question your staff will be imperative to making sure that they don't get caught up in the exciting chaos syndrome. Organizations deploy value stream mapping. Well, if you don't deploy value stream mapping and you only use other tools like process mapping that we've talked about, you'll find that your organization will not be able to change and that it will be caught in doing very much project or point improvement type activities. Also, if you have an opportunity to put together your Hoshin or your strategic plan at a leadership level that documents the vision and the mission and the KPIs that are important and who is responsible, that's a document that is well worth spending the time on and will certainly lead you to be able to use that in communicating to your staff where the organization is going. And we've talked about system thinking, and we won't get into that anymore. Success factors. The last one is expertise. And I'm excited to talk to you about this one because I am thinking more along training managers and consultants. It is very important to know that you're getting the highest quality knowledge person into your organization and that they honestly understand what Lean is all about, that it is not a tool, that it looks at system improvement, not point improvements, that they're experts in the field, that they've been in many different environments and have some practical hands-on experience. If they don't have that, then they are experts in the theory, which is all well and good, but every situation is unique and they need to understand how do you adapt and apply the concepts and approach to those unique situations. They also should transfer the knowledge. I think every consultant I know says they're transferring knowledge, but I've seen a lot of evidence of where they're not really transferring the knowledge. They'll actually come in and make the change for the organization. And once they leave, then of course, the change deteriorates because it's not sustainable. People are not bought in. And therefore, what you did with that consultant, the improvement deteriorates to the point where it really is causing more problems than previous if you wouldn't have done anything. Also, it shouldn't take hundreds of days of outside help to transform an organization. You bring people in to work in your organization in critical times, not just pull up a chair beside you. This change has to be internal. It has to be your staff, your leadership that is credited with the change. Outside help is there to coach and support and give you the knowledge when you need it. But beyond that, it has to be seen as your own. And the people need to take pride in what they've been able to do and successfully attain. So that takes into sustainable transformation. One thing you don't need is a person coming in and doing point improvements, as we talked about. Consultants are good at being firemen, but they're also good at being the arsonist and therefore creating their own next jobs within your organization. So be very careful of that. Create the change culturally and technically. There's things you can do that are quick hits, but that's not cultural change. That's what we did back in the 1980s. So make sure that you have detailed future state implementation plans that actually give people a structure on how to go about change and that everyone is following the basic steps in creating change within your organization. So a few things, if you see these things, you should have flags should go up. If you see that people are coming to you with lists of projects and there's no current state or future state or detailed implementation plan, you should be very leery of that. If you see someone come to you with a matrix, the high effort, low impact, high effort, high impact, that type of matrix, be very scared, because that isn't the way you select what you're going to do. Remember, it's a system, it's not point improvements. Point improvements create exciting chaos. Process maps, of course, if that's what you get, be very leery. Bottlenecks, if they start talking low-hanging fruit bottlenecks, be, again, leery of going down that path. You need to investigate a little more. You're probably getting yourself back into point improvement. If a person that you're working with has limited experience in environments with lean transformations, of course, it's obvious you might want to check out just how much knowledge they have and whether that knowledge is the right knowledge. And if the person measures success with only one or two of quality, speed, and cost, and not all three, then chances are you're going to sub-optimize the change and the improvements. Also, if the person decides that you need more equipment, more people, more space, whatever, big capital expenditures, be very careful. That should not be the first phase of any lean transformation. If the organization or the suggestion is to set up Kaizen offices, project management offices, get everyone certified, black belt, green belt, yellow belt, white belt, master black belt, senseis, be very leery of that as well, because that is not what it takes to do a transformation. Things like that end up, Kaizen offices, project management offices, end up looking at just selecting projects, point improvements again, and they go at doing that. And no one does anything unless the Kaizen office or the project management office or the certified person comes in to help them. So that can be very scary and causes a lot of grief, and actually does not change the culture. In fact, takes you back to, again, decades ago when we did project management. So that is one that you should be very cautious of. And of course, we've talked about tools. If the person comes in or your people come in and they want to just apply a tool, ask them, let me see the future state implementation plan and where that tool and that change fits into the overall transformation of a sustainable system improvement, which impacts the client positively. So just to reiterate and re-emphasize, lean is not a tool. And these are some of the tools that a lot of people have come to you with. That is not what it is. And it's called exciting chaos because when you make an improvement in one area, you're excited about it, but you've just created chaos throughout the system when you make that improvement. So don't get enamored with these tools. So what does it take to succeed? We've been through it. Measurement, proper measurements, drive the right behaviors. System thinking, not projects. So value stream mapping, not process mapping. Lean is not a tool, it's a cultural change. Use the 12 months of the year. It's not 5.5. Increase management capacity. Without doing that, you'll find it very difficult to implement change because people will be stressed out. They're already working hard. Now you've thrown another thing onto them, responsibility of change, which is huge, and they don't have time to do it properly. And of course, leadership and expertise, the proper expertise, are key to making this work. So the 4: passion, courage, the right knowledge, proper plan and vision, and execute the plan, constantly executing the plan. And that leads to a standardized way to change anything within the organization. Current state analysis, future state detailed implementation plan, every time. And once people get onto that, it becomes such a useful and effective tool, but it also becomes a way of thinking because everyone is focused on client or customer satisfaction, quality, cost, and speed, which gives you the flexibility. So lean does work. You have to do it the right way. There's many ways to implement lean, only a couple ways to do it right. The challenge is ensuring that we select the right way. And I always end with this quote: if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. You have to make the decision. Lean will work for you. Just do it the right way and make sure that you're doing it the right way. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll talk with you soon.